All right, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and today we're going to do a little bit of tooling. Much like we did yesterday the round coaster version. We tooled this one right here, okay, and then it'll be intended to have this frame sewn on it and then the edges cut off, making a really nice coaster. But that is all part of a larger project called the Whitney, which is a decanter mat set. Decanter, you know, the big glass pretty jug that holds whiskey, and then 4 glasses that go with it. So what we have now is the mat that's going under it, and in the mat is tooled 4 squares that could be just tooled on to regular square coasters as well, but on this one they're going to be tooled in the 4 corners of this mat, and then once again a big old frame is going to go around it all. I know this isn't going to line up all perfectly and pretty, but it's going to look pretty dang cool when it's all done. Okay, so today we're going to tool the square coaster on the mat. I've already done 1, obviously. I've got 3 more to go. Figure I might as well put one down on video so that folks could see how it's done. Ordinarily when I tool, I don't leave all these tools all over my bench, but I didn't want to forget which specific tools I used for this since I have to make 4 matching ones. Yesterday I did a camera angle where I put the camera just right in front of me and it was just right in on the action. Unfortunately, I can't do that today because this big old piece is going to have to move around quite a bit, and there's just not room on my desk for that kind of view. So I'm going to put it onto the overhead camera, and we'll see what we can get going on there. And see how well we can do with it. So, without further delaying that, let's get to it. All right, so the pattern has already been transferred to the leather. It's not quite as heavy as I'd hoped it would transfer over, but that's okay. I just used the stylus, I pushed the piece of paper over the leather and drew it in. If you're making the Whitney Decanter set like this, I put the template over the leather and just very lightly scribed the 4 squares that this pattern would go into, and then I knew exactly where to place my pattern so that they'll be centered in the squares once I put the overlay over it all. Okay. First and foremost, I must say this pattern was drawn for us by Joe Mealing of 23 Plus Leathercraft. Joe is a really good guy. He's an amazing leather artist. He's an amazing overall artist, and he and his family are really good folks too. I know I said it exactly like that in the last video, but I can't stress enough how good of people these are. I've met Joe on a number of occasions, and we've had the chance to hang out some, and he even recently came to our shop and gave a class, and I would host that guy any day. He is a really cool dude. Anyway, since the pattern is already traced on there, the first thing I do before I start all my swivel cuts, since this pattern has some flowers involved, I go ahead and put the centers in the flowers. That way I know exactly where to stop my swivel cuts so they can stop right at the centers of the flowers. Okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and throw my 2 flower centers in there. And there we go. Okay? Now, after that, I just do my swivel cuts. Okay? Nothing to it. What I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with my flowers, and then I'm going to swivel cut all of the scrolls and such like that are, you know, basically background to the flowers. So yeah, I realize that you don't get quite as good of a view today as you did yesterday because my hand's probably partially blocking what I'm doing here, but yeah, part of my issue with having the YouTube channel and in general making videos for folks and how-tos is I think, well, you know, everything I'm about to say I said in yesterday's video, and that's true. There's going to be a lot of repetition today. However, what if you didn't watch yesterday's video? What if you can't find yesterday's video? What if you didn't even want to care about the round coaster yesterday, and so now you're like, well, I just wanted to do the square coaster. So anyway, there will be a lot of repetition from yesterday's video. I apologize for that, but I want to be thorough, okay? So anyway, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to first swivel knife out this flower, these flowers themselves. And then when we come back, that'll be done, and I'll show you what I'm going to swivel cut next, because there is kind of an order of merit, or an order of march, I guess you could say, on how you should do your swivel cutting when you're doing a pattern like this. So we'll be back in just a minute. Alright, so I swivel cut out the two flowers. Now I have to decide, when I swivel cut, what you should do is start with what's closest to you. This is a 3D picture. Start with what's closest to you and work your way into the background. Okay? So after the flowers themselves, the things that stick out as being on top of things are these two scrolls right here, this big leaf right here, and the flower, the stems, I guess, where the bloom comes out of. And then just kind of all the other stuff behind all that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, this is almost a repetitious pattern, this side and that side. I'm just going to go ahead and do one side of it, which is also the side that happens to be on top. And that way you can see the sequence of how I'm doing it. And then I will, once again, pause the camera. I'll do the other side, because you don't need to watch me do it twice. Again, this is a little bit more difficult for me because I'm trying not to twist and turn the pattern too much, which means with my swivel knife I'm having to do a lot more picking up and angling and things like that. Generally, when I go around a big round scroll like this, I'll continue to turn the leather so that my swivel knife is always in an area and angle that's comfortable to me, because then I know I'll get the best results. But this is where you got to kind of really build your skills and try some new things, such as pushing the swivel knife sideways to your body, as opposed to, generally I try to keep it pulling towards me. It's just a more fluid and natural motion for me to keep it pulling toward me. When I was a kid, I took some art lessons from a local artist named Hugh Riker, and he was like, draw a straight line on your paper. And I just took my pencil and kind of drew one across, and it was not anywhere near straight by any means. He's like, all right, now take that paper, and instead of drawing it across like that, start at the top and pull the line down towards you, drawing it straight down. And what do you know, instantly I could draw a much straighter line that way. To some of the more artistically inclined, that may just sound like the simplest and dumbest thing, like, duh, everybody knows that. But to me, I had no clue. And sometimes I still have to remind myself of it today. Just a couple more lines to go, and that'll be it for this half of the pattern. This pattern is not any more difficult than the one we did yesterday on the round coaster, but it is more detailed. It has flowers, it has more scrolls, it's just a little bit more. The lines aren't any more difficult, they're not harder to cut or any closer together or anything crazy like that. There's just more to do. This is a great beginner to intermediate pattern for folks that maybe aren't Carrie Schwartz yet, or any of the other big name leather crafters out there that are making such beautiful patterns. I mentioned Joe Mealing, his company is 23 Plus Leatherwork. His website is also 23 Plus. On his website, he's got lots of patterns and links to his how-to videos and stuff like that. He does have a YouTube channel. He's just got all kinds of great resources out there, and he's a really good teacher. I have seen him take folks that are unsure of themselves, and by the time they're done with his class, they are pretty dang sure of what they're doing out there. So, anyway. All right. I'm already cutting on the second half here, so again, I'm going to pause the video, finish cutting these out, and then we'll come back and we'll start our tooling with the flowers. Alright, got all our swivel cuts done for now. We'll have to come back, of course, and do our decorative swivel cuts later, but that's alright. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is our flower centers. Okay, we've already obviously got our seeds in the middle of them, but flowers are kind of cone shaped generally. Okay, so the center shader is the next tool we're going to use, and I've got two different varieties here. I really like this one here. It was made by Clay Miller. His mentor in the business taught him how to make this style, and I just absolutely love it. The standard in the industry, I guess you could say, is this Barry King style here. I call it Barry King style. I'm sure he didn't invent the tool, but he's the one that makes them. One of the ones that makes them. But anyway, on this one, you would put that crescent shape right there against the center of the flower, lean it towards the center of the flower, and then walk it around, shading as you go. But I'm going to use mine. Okay, kind of the same thing, except on this one, the lines on it are vertical to, or yeah, I guess they'd be horizontal to it. Anyway, the lines on this one kind of spiral around the center of the flower. The lines on this one go out and away from the flower, or the center of the flower. Okay, and again, I really like this one. I like the effect it gives, but I also like that not everybody has this tool, so it's just kind of a unique one that I can use on my work. And yeah. Okay, so here we go. I'll bring it up to the camera a little bit here. I've done half of this flower right here, and again, it just kind of creates a lot of shade right there towards the center and gives the illusion of a cone shape going down into that seed pod. So there it is. Alright, now I have to do two of them at once, so I'm gonna just knock out this other one real quick. And then from there, I do my pear shading on flowers, or thumb printing. Okay, I prefer a pear shader. Okay, traditional pear shader. I guess I'm more of a traditionalist when I do floral tooling and stuff. A thumbprint is a skinnier, longer tool, and I don't feel like it matches some flower designs. And this is one of those flowers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of accentuate the ends of the petals with this pear shader here. Just going along and creating some shade. I don't need to cover the entire petal with it, but I do want to get some good shading in there and give it some dimension. Some detail. The thing with a pear shader is to kind of walk it around as you use it. You don't just want to see one impression of a pear on there. You want it to have some flow to it, and yeah. I think that's one of the things I don't like about thumbprints is so many people just use them as a one hit and quit type thing. And we've all learned through life that one hit and quit is not the right answer. Anyway. Alright, so I gotta do the other one real quick, same way. And then I'll hold it up a little closer to the camera so you can see what I've done. Now I do this before I do my beveling so that I don't have to worry about the exact edge of the flower. I can always bevel next, and yeah, and it'll kind of clean it up, give it defined borders for each petal, stuff like that. So that's about it. That's the shading I'm going to do on these two. Okay, and again, right now it doesn't look like much, but once we do some beveling and stuff like that, it's really going to clean that up. Okay, so next is, in fact, my beveling. Okay, now when I look at a flower like this, almost any flower that's drawn for leather tooling and projects, there's always going to be like a petal that's on top of all the other petals and a petal that's underneath all the other petals. Okay, and we're going to bevel it in that order. We're going to start with the one that's closest to us and work our way around to the one that's behind us, and that way they're all layered correctly once they're beveled. So I'm going to start with this one right here, because its petal is on top of all the other petals, and that will be very easy to see once it's beveled in. I am using checkered bevelers, also from Clay Miller. I said it in yesterday's video too, but I had him, when we worked together, I asked him to make me a set of bevelers, backgrounders, when I say bevelers, the steep and the low angle bevelers, but a set of bevelers, backgrounders, and pear shaders that all had matching checkering on them. And I just love my beveling set. That's one of the things that stinks about the craft tools. Some of them were very well made over the history of the craft tool company. I'm not going to say they weren't by any means, but a lot of them, the checkering on them or the texture on them doesn't match because they were made in different factories or different shops or different time frames even. You know, if you got one that's 20 years old and one that's 40 years old, they're going to be different. And if you've got one that's only a couple of years old, it's going to be way different. So, as you get into this more and you want to invest in tools, bevelers are one of the biggest things I suggest people invest in. Barry King or Clay Miller, or you know, some tools like that where they're all going to match and be really nice. And what I'm going to do here is, after I'm done beveling this one flower, I'll go ahead and just do the last couple of little steps to it, and then I'll turn off the camera and do the other flower to match, and then we'll come back and do all of our other scroll work and beveling and stuff like that. So there we go, she's beveled. All right. Now, for whatever reason, this one petal didn't pear shade quite as dark as the others, so I'm going to give it a little bit more love here, and a little bit more force. Try to darken it up a little bit. That actually has more to do with moisture content than anything. When I sprayed it, I probably didn't spray this area as well as I did some of the other. That's why that is. So anyway, all right, now I'm going to use, here at the center of the flower, all of these petals just kind of mush together now, okay? They just kind of mush together right there at the very center. So what I have here is a fluted veiner, all right? Also called scalloped, I guess. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it just right at the very end of that petal. Let me get my fingers out of the way if I can. Right at the very end of that petal where they come together, I'm going to lean it towards the center of the petal and just give it a little whack. And it is the tiniest little detail, but it acts as what's called a stop and gives some definition to the very base of that petal. I'm going to go around the flower doing that to each of the bases of the petals. Okay, and now they've got a little bit more detail to them. All right. As far as these flowers go, this is it. Besides, I'm going to do some decorative swivel cuts. These are very basic flowers, the way I'm tooling them at least. I'm sure some other guys can put some serious details and stuff into them. But get the other one on here. This one's done the exact same way, except I added the decorative swivel cuts, and they really give it some dimension afterward. And that's that. So I'm gonna catch up to with my other flower over here, and when I come back, we'll work on the rest of the scroll work and stuff. Alright, and we're back. So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some texture into these main scrolls right here. Also on the bud, I guess you call it, where the flower stem comes up and then the flower actually blooms out of it. And we're going to use a fluted, the same fluted veiner that we used before. Okay, and I explained this in yesterday's video as well, but what we're going to do is we need to pretend like there's a straight line that goes across the base of this tool. And that straight line, as we use this tool, should flow directly, get my hands out of the way again, should flow directly to the center of a scroll. Okay, and that way as you go around the scroll and you keep rotating it so that that imaginary line goes to the center, it gives it a nice flow and it keeps the tool even as you go around. So I'm gonna do a couple here and I'll show you. So I've got the back corner of it just right up here on this line, you know, the back end of the scroll. I want to lean it away from the center of the scroll, make sure my imaginary line is pointed to the center of the scroll, and give it a hit. Then I'm going to move it up a little bit, change my angle so that the imaginary line is pointed the right way again, give it a hit. And I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around it. Okay? I don't want to hit it too hard because I don't want it to go all the way across that scroll. I just want it to fade out. Okay? Now it's very difficult for me to continue doing it at this angle. Normally I would turn this thing around, but I'm trying to get you to see it, not me. I've been doing this a long time when someone taught me that trick, and man, it made so much sense. Like, how did I not think of that myself? Now as I get down here to the last couple of them, I'm going to kind of fade them out and hit them a lot lighter, so that, you know, we're not just going hard, going strong, and then all of a sudden we just stop, you know. So I'm going to do that same thing on this other main scroll over here, but I'm also going to do it right going up the base of the flower here. Okay, and I'm just going to point it, just to have a point of reference, I'll point it at the center of the flower as I go around. And this one I'm going to make it a little bit closer together, like that. Just giving it a little texture. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that on the other flower over here, and then on the other scroll. I know my hands are covering it, I apologize. And once I've done with this, when we bevel it, since we're doing this first and then beveling second, it gives it a lot of 3D characteristic. It kind of makes it look like this scallop is wrapping all the way around a rounded stem, which would be what it actually we're trying to mimic in real life here. Okay, so I'm going to go real quick and I'm just going to bevel this one scroll so that you can see that. Beveling is one thing I do not like to do if I don't have the right angle and I can't see it well. I don't like to just guess at where I'm about to bevel next. A swivel knife I can do pretty well with at uncomfortable angles, but beveling, I've just got to get in there and make sure I'm comfortable so that everything flows nicely around. Now, before I get to this part right here, I'm going to take a smaller beveler and do the center of that little circle there. because that's a whole nother layer that should be beveled first. Now I'll go back and bevel back up to that. And there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to bevel the inside of that same scroll there. Back on camera there. And then there is a stem right in the middle, or a leaf, I guess you could say, right in the middle of that scroll there too. So bevel that down a little bit. And there we go. Now after that, after I do that same thing to this other side and to these two flower blooms, I'm just going to bevel everything. It's time to just go ahead and bevel it all. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do next. When I come back, all of this will be beveled, and we'll talk about the next step. All right, here we are. Now that all that's beveled, it's really starting to look like something, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is grab my trusty old pear shader, wherever I may have laid it down. There it is. Okay, I'm going to start with my large one. And basically any of these big old leaves and stuff like that, I'm just going to give them some color and some texture, following the flow of the leaf. Now as you're doing your tooling and stuff, anytime that your leather starts to feel dry, you're going to want to give it a little bit more moisture content, okay? Otherwise your tooling is just not going to be as crisp, it's not going to shade as well. Basically the rule of thumb is if you touch it and it feels cold, then it's good to go. But if it doesn't feel cold anymore, then you might want to give it a little spritz with some water, or some people use like a sponge with a bowl of water. I don't like the sponge because generally I tend to oversaturate it. You just barely want it damp. Okay, every time I've used a sponge, I've had to go and put the water on it, and then I've had to just kind of sit there and wait a few minutes before it's ready to keep tooling. Okay, so again, I'm doing what I can with my large pear shader here. A very couple of these I'm going to need to move to my smaller pear shader. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm just looking at all these, and I think I've got them all. But I'm going to go back with a low angle beveler, okay? So the steep angle beveler is a 30-degree beveler, and the shallow or the low angle beveler is not near as steep. It's only 15 degrees if I remember right. And I'm going to do this area right here. Okay, what this is, let me get where I can point more accurately at it. This is an area where the side of this leaf has folded over itself. Okay, so I need to shade the main part of the leaf just to give it some depth behind that fold over. So I'm going to go back with my steep angle beveler, or my low angle beveler here, and give it some more beveling. Just following the same bevel I already did. And there you go. It gave it a lot more shading and everything, and made it look like that's creating a shadow and some depth. Okay, and then yes, I will go back with my small pear shader, and I'm just going to do my same kind of accents on the outside of that I do on the inside. Just like that. Okay. Here's another one I missed already. This one's kind of tricky because it's inside that scroll, and I don't want to accidentally pear shade the scroll itself, okay? But I also can go back with that same low angle beveler, and if you pay attention to this line right here where I beveled, if I bevel that again with my low angle beveler, it's going to create a lot of shade there and give the illusion of a lot of depth. And I want that. I want it to really look 3D here. And there it is. There will be a couple other places that I do some more of that with my low angle beveler here, just to kind of clean up some of my beveling and create some more depth. If you have a multitude of bevelers of different angles and shades and stuff, you should play with them some and kind of get a feel for what they can do for you, because they really can help. Not every beveler is made the same, and therefore they don't get the same results, and that's a good thing. Okay, now a couple more things here. We've got a couple of what I call buds, I guess. These little points right here and here. Let me get back on camera, I'm sorry. These little points right here, and right here. To me, those are unbloomed flowers. I'm not really sure what they're intended to be, but that's kind of what that symbolizes to me. So I'm going to take a fluted veiner. Let me get on camera with it. It's a fluted camouflager. It's a camouflager, and it's got little scallops inside of it. And I'm going to do kind of the same thing that we did like on these outer scrolls here. I'm going to put it right at the edge and give it a little bit of a hit and just follow up the sides of those and give it a little bit of love too. Okay, I am definitely one of those less is more kind of people. I realize that not everything has to be covered up in tooling and stuff like that, but some things should be tooled. And this is one of those things that I really think it adds to it to do a little bit of this. It really makes it nice, gives it some texture. Okay. I'm looking at my previous one that I tooled, and on the largest one there, I didn't do this. I just did some decorative swivel cuts, and since I need them to match, I'm not going to do it here. I probably should have done it there, but that's okay. All right, so we're pretty much, whoop, there's another one. Hang on, I found another one. Let me see what I did on the other one there. Yeah, this one right here. I did the same on the other tooling there, so I'd better do it on this one. There we go. Now there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go through, I've got two choices. I can do my background work, and I like to do my background work because once you've done your background work, it really makes everything stand out, and it also will show you if maybe you forgot to tool one of the leaves or something. I explained yesterday, traditionally, floral carving has like bar grounding for a background, which is a bunch of little seeds, I guess you can say. I've never been a huge fan of the bar grounder because I have my own way and my own style of doing things, and so I just use a checkered matting tool that's pretty small. When I had this one made, Clay Miller made it for me. I took the Craft Tool A98, which is just a checkered batting tool that's a small teardrop shape. And I handed it to Clay, and I said, you know what I'd really love is a whole set of these of different sizes and shapes that all match as far as the checkering goes. And that's exactly what he made me. This one is the A98 size, but I have some that are larger and some that are smaller, and there's no little crook or cranny that I can't fit into with them to do my background work. So I'm going to go around here and I'm going to do all my background work with this little bitty tool here, and when we come back, that'll be done, and I'm going to show you what you can do with either a triangle beveler or a very pointed matting tool. Alright, so I got all my backgrounding done. I zoomed in as much as the camera will from this angle and position. Now what I have here is just a tiny little triangle shaped beveler, okay? And I love using this tool to clean up my floral work. Okay, with floral work, there's tons and tons of areas where, like this leaf right here and this scroll right here, that creates a very, very sharp junction right there, where my background tools won't always fit into that area. Okay, so if I take my tiny, tiny little pointed beveler and I put the point of it right up in that area and just give it a very, very slight tap, it just cleans it up. And it's one of those things that, like, you don't have to do it, but there's a lot of things we don't have to do that if we want to do better work, we're going to do it anyway. Okay? So anyway, I just love using this tool. It really adds some sharpness to the tooling. And I'll use it basically in every one of those junctions all throughout this entire project, just to kind of clean it up and make it look as professional as I can. Okay, I also have a very, very small one of those matting tools that I could do this with, but it's one or the other. It doesn't really matter. I can do it with either, but I do know that a triangle-shaped beveler is a very common tool, you know, that you can find at almost anybody that makes or sells tools. Even a craft tool has one. It's not as small as I like, but the cool thing about it is the craft tools are inexpensive enough that you can modify them if you want. You know, like I would never take one of my expensive handmade tools and grind it down myself. Well, I say that, I've done it. But I have taken lots of craft tools, such as a triangle beveler, and sanded down the sides of it on a grinder or a belt sander or something to make it thinner, or maybe even reshape it, you know, to my liking. And the more experience you gain doing leather work, sometimes you're going to be like, man, I wish there was a tool that did this. And there probably is a tool that does that, and you either just don't have it or can't find it. So screw it. Take an inexpensive tool or one that you don't use and make it do that. And yeah, that's how a lot of the guys that are really good at what they do, I mean, they've invented some of their own tools to fit their own needs. Okay? I honestly would have never tried such a thing until I was with Clay, and he kind of showed me how easy it is to do such a thing. Now I realize not everybody has, you know, a grinder or a belt sander to do that with. You could do it with a Dremel or something like that. It might take a little bit longer, but anyway, that's what it is. So my backgrounding looks like it's about done here. Yeah. So I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to do some swivel knife cuts, some decorative swivel knife cuts. I'm going to start with the flowers, and we'll work from there. Okay, so I'm going to start with this flower right here. And decorative swivel cuts are definitely a weakness for me. I am not really great at them, but I'm trying to do better. For years, my go-to was just, give it like 5 little lines that kind of all go towards the center of the flower, and we'll call that good. But it just doesn't have the finesse of other people's carvings, the people that I look up to, you know, people I strive to tool better and be like. All of us have heroes. So now I like this big old broad flower. It's very hard for me. Normally with a narrow petal like this, it's very easy for me to just do a couple of lines and be like, yeah. But if you got to fill some space, one of the things I can tell you about decorative swivel cuts is that they should flow towards the center of the flower. Okay, if they don't flow towards the center of the flower, then you won't have that even flow all the way around that you're looking for. Okay, so to take up a little more room, what I've started doing is like a little fish hook design on the other end, on the coming off the top of those cuts, and it does a good job of filling more space, taking more room, whatever you want to say. There we go. Not my most impressive ones. As a matter of fact, I'm going to cut some of these a little bit wider and deeper. You know, as your leather moisture content goes away, you might have to press a little bit harder to get the same results you were getting before. Or, of course, you could just get your leather a little bit more damp. So, I'll do another one here. Add my little fish hooks on the end. Again, to me, the broader the petal, then the harder it is for me to fill the space and look right. So for instance, I really like how this one looks. I'm sorry, I got off camera on you. I really like how this one looks as opposed to the first one I did. I'm not upset about the first one, but the second one looks better. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do on the flower petals. Now let's talk about these big old honking leaves and stuff. A lot of the time I'll do 2 really deep cuts, one like that, and another one that just kind of follows the flow of the outside of the leaf. Okay. On this bud right here, I'm going to do the same type thing that I'm doing on these flower petals here. Yeah, I'm just going to find all the leaves and stuff and do those same type things to them. And when we come back, that'll be done, and we'll talk about the next step. Alright folks, I got 2 more tools I'm going to use here. I'm going to try to get a good... There we go. One of them is going to be this continuous mule's foot here. Okay, so the mule foot is just a U-shaped tool. A continuous mule foot is several of those put together. Hopefully you can get a good look at that. And what it's good for is, let's say that you got an area like this right here. All these areas, all these leaves and separate breakouts are coming down together into the scroll, and that looks kind of plain. So if you took this tool and you put it right at the base of where 2 of those are coming together, and you gave it a little tappy tap, it gives it a nice little something. It fills some space, and yeah. You can use the tool by leaning it left or right to kind of follow the curvature of everything, and that'll help. But it really helps to fill some space and really some of the areas that are, I'm sorry I got way off camera there, some of the areas that are really lacking, it'll kind of help you get some definition there. So I pretty much find all these junctions, and if it fits, I give it a hit. If it doesn't fit, I don't force it. I don't want to, I don't want to overdo it. I've seen folks use this thing, and I mean every single junction has one, and it's too much. Again, when I start doing stuff like that, then I feel like, oh crap, the less is more thing should have happened, and I shouldn't have done all that. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my low angle beveler. I've got a larger one over here somewhere under this thing. Where is it at? Here it is. And I'm just going to go around the entire perimeter. I'm off camera again, I apologize. Go around the entire perimeter of this thing, and I'm going to use it to get rid of what's called the halo. Okay? Right here, you can easily see where it was beveled and where it wasn't beveled, because the bevel comes up and then goes back to flat leather. All the low angle beveler does is take and push more material down, more leather down, and it makes it to where the halo's not quite as evident. Alright? I really like using this tool because it kind of helps to give the effect that this entire carving is just sitting on top of the leather. Okay? So that's it. I'm going to go all the way around it doing that on the outsides. I'm going to finish. I'm noticing that I didn't finish doing all my decorative swivel cuts on the flowers. That's no big deal. I'll do them now. And that's it. This project is done. Again, this is part of a larger project here, but it easily fits on like a 4-inch coaster. The pattern for this is a free download from our website. We'll put the link in the description of the video. I've still got to tool 2 more of these to finish this mat up, but y'all don't have to watch me do that. So, until next time, guys, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and I hope you learned something today. Have a good day.